Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's reading from Sri Damodara Janani by His Holiness Sivarama Swami. At the moment we are reading from Chapter 2, Mother Yashoda attends to her duties. So far we have read that Krishna has just woken up from his sleep, and Yashoda Devi, she was engrossed in her meditations on Krishna. She was singing her songs based on her affection for Krishna, based on Krishna's pastimes, leelas with the gopis. And let us continue from there onwards. Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripatam ham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Is this really Krishna? Yes, it was him. The power of divine love is such that it reveals Krishna's sweetness, freshness, beauty and charm in proportion to love's intensity. Thus, by her newly evolved affection, Yashoda was experiencing Krishna in never before seen ways. To Vraja's queen, Krishna's transcendental form was a mysterious dark creeper of beauty, sprouting from a mound of musk and growing skywards, where it drank from fresh rain clouds to shower her with sapphire flowers, soft as the foam of milk and carrying the fragrance of musk. Blinking to clear her eyes, Yashoda then saw her son to be a puppet made of jewels, his limbs blue sapphires, his lips, hands and feet red rubies, his nails pink coral and his teeth spotless pearls. But when she looked again, it appeared that he was made of blue lotuses scattered with red ashoka, pink java and white mallika flowers. Was he made of gems or flowers? Gently stroking his hair, she saw the curly black locks framing his forehead as a swarm of bumblebees, which, when intoxicated from drinking the nectar of his face, disappeared into the dark night of his hair. Yes, he is made of flowers. Enchanted by these wonders, doubt arose in Yashoda's mind, and she turned Krishna's pinkish soles upward, noting their special signs like the gourd, bow and chakra. What is this? When she examined his hand, she noted other signs of divinity. About to address her son with reverence, she looked into his eyes, two blue lotus buds growing from startlingly mysterious depths. Those eyes were made all the more unsettling by the tear-smeared ointment around them, in which countless universes seemed to rise and fall. Her heart trembled in reverential wonder. Who is he? And then it was over. Krishna raised the soft petals of his hand and touched her cheek, sobbing assertively. Mother, and Prema withdrew any feelings of reverence from Yashoda's heart, leaving it full of maternal love. Divine characteristics may ornament my son, but whatever the appearances, he is an ordinary boy, born of my womb. She reprimanded herself. Why am I so selfish, enjoying my son instead of serving him? Kissing his sapphire blue cheeks and uttering short cries of loving concern, Yashoda said, Poor thing, my little darling, you must be hungry after sleeping so long. I am very hungry and I am very angry. As the sound of Krishna's voice created in her ear an echo akin to Vedic mantras, Yashoda smoothed Krishna's hair with her hand. Why are you angry, my dear? Because you are churning butter instead of giving me your milk. Are you very angry with me? Had you not stopped churning, I would have broken the churn. Oh dear, but darling, the butter is also meant for you. That may be, but the butter is for later and I'm hungry now. Yashoda Devi marveled at the cleverness of this little boy. She thought, he's only 3, yet he can speak and behave like an adult. Her heart swelled with pride as a wave after wave of divine ecstasy swept through her body. Teasing, she replied, Then why are you talking? Why do you not drink? Laying Krishna comfortably on her lap, Yashoda undid her blouse and began to nurse her little son. Krishna did not have to suck, for milk poured spontaneously from his mother's divine breast like a monsoon downpour from a dark cloud. Yashoda watched Krishna hold her breast with his two lotus hands and listened to his repertoire of sounds of satisfaction. With his hair hanging like a curtain of dark dews, Krishna was a chatak bird drinking from a rain cloud in the dead of night. Sometimes a little milk would spill from the edge of Krishna's mouth. Sometimes he would spit some out. At those times, Yashoda would smile and wipe the drops from his face with the edge of her veil. When Krishna opened his eyes and saw his mother's benevolent countenance, he also smiled, and again the milk spilled. Seeing the mark of Shrivatsa and sign of Lakshmi on his chest, the queen thought they were milk and tried to wipe them away. But then she recognized them for what they were, and shaking her head, she whispered, "You are such a mysterious little boy. It is difficult to describe the transcendental exchange between Yashoda and Krishna." Although resembling a mother breastfeeding her child, it was much, much more than that. Krishna was not just drinking ambrosial milk, he was drinking the liquid form of maternal love, and Mother Yashoda was not just breastfeeding him, but pouring the very essence of her heart into him. In the mundane variant of such a relationship, the infant is the recipient and the mother the benefactor. But in this sacred exchange, the original maternal relationship, Krishna fully reciprocated with Yashoda, giving as much as he was taking and perhaps even more. What was Krishna giving to Mother Yashoda, and how was he doing it? While touching Yashoda Devi's breast, and with the devotion that a pujari touches a deity, a current of love passed from son to mother, increasing her bliss immeasurably. And although laying on her lap, Krishna also entered his mother's heart, wherein she not only felt the bliss he was enjoying, but also the love for her that he was radiating. As a result, they both became ensnared in a kind of spiritual rivalry in which each spontaneously outdid the other in mutual offerings of ever-ascending love. This contest of love filled the kitchen with auspiciousness, and with its rays it invoked the highest ecstasy in all creatures nearby. Finally, love reached the stage at which both Yashoda's and Krishna's hearts melted. And in that condition, they both thought that one could not be without the other for even a fraction of a moment. Yashoda Devi thought, "I shall die if I am ever separated from him." Krishna looked at his mother. How could I ever be without her? Seeing that this kind of loving intoxication could obstruct the unfolding of Krishna's Damodara-Lila, Prema decided to intervene. Queen Yashoda is truly the mother of the universe because she nurses the shelter of all universes, and yet for the sake of all beings, I must interrupt her service lest my Lord's pastimes be hindered. Thus love's influence on both mother and son gradually subsided, and consequently the affection, sneha, that was welding them together slackened. Taking her cue from this latest development, the pastime potency turned another leaf in the book of Damodar's transcendental pursuits. To behold the idyllic scene of mother and son, a pair of parrots landed on the terrace balustrade, joining the gathering of a few other birds that had arrived earlier. These two were known as Shuka and Shari, and they were favorites of Krishna, who would often feed them grapes and pomegranates. Sitting side by side, the two birds craned their necks in an attempt to better see Krishna over Mother Yashoda's shoulders. Not satisfied, they flew to a perch inside the balcony that Nanda Maharaj had installed for his son's favorite birds. From their new vantage point, the birds watched Mother Yashoda beaming at her son's smiling face. Perhaps he was smiling because the milk was flowing spontaneously into his mouth, or perhaps because his hunger was being assuaged. "Perhaps it is both," said Shuka to his spouse. Amplified by the vision of her son's face, enchantment echoed in the queen's mind. "Just see how intelligent this boy is. He stopped me from churning, sat himself on my lap, and with the cleverest words prevailed on me to feed him. Just see." As if in agreement, the parrots shook their heads side to side, equally captivated by the cloud blue boy. Then unexpected sound startled them, and in fear they flapped their wings and screeched. A choir of sound burst through Yashoda's blissful absorption. "Emergency, emergency! Krishna's milk is boiling over." The milk's alarming debut in her thoughts was swiftly followed by its song. The boiling milk crooned, glug, glug, and rolled to the rim of the pot. Rumble, rumble. It flowed down the sides, tss, tss, and spattered onto the stove. Psst. In this way, the milk taunted Yashoda with its medley of sounds. "O Queen, your inept maid put too much wood on the fire. That silly girl," murmured Yashoda, "never again." Seeing that stove had become too hot and the milk pan was clearly boiling over, Yashoda Devi acted quickly. Lifting Krishna from her lap, Yashoda placed him on the floor and rose to her feet. "My dear, please watch the churning pot while I look after your milk. I will only be a moment." With that, she raced off to the kitchen. Krishna reeled in shock at this sudden turn of events. He watched his departing mother's back and the trail of breast milk she had left on the floor. Then, feeling hungry and neglected, he bit his lower lip and stamped his feet in anger. After fasting all night, here he was teased with a few drops of milk and then abruptly deprived of more. His stomach was pained with hunger. How frustrating! And it was a double calamity. He was deprived not only of nourishment but of motherly love. Anger rose within him and he began to growl like a lion cub. The sound was not accidental. The presiding deity of parental love is Nrsimhadev, and that the half-lion lord was voicing his displeasure in no uncertain terms. Again Krishna stamped his feet and hot tears of anger rolled down his cheeks and fell to the ground. The parrots were aghast. How could this be? Shukra turned to Shari. Why did Mother Yashoda not continue feeding her son and just carry him into the kitchen? Shari replied, "It is not obvious. She was afraid that she would drop him in the process." The other birds present became equally excited, some considering Mother Yashoda's conduct controversial, others considering it natural. In defense of the queen, a she-cuckoo added, "Not only that, to keep the milk from burning, Yashoda had to move quickly, and she would not be able to do so if she was encumbered by her son." But some birds were not satisfied with the answer and they were continuing to clamor amongst themselves, some questioning, some defending the queen's actions. Another cuckoo crooned, "Although Krishna was only half finished with drinking when Yashoda put him down, considering the urgency of the situation and the risk of dropping him, what else could she do?" But Shukra screeched, "How can you speak like that? Is it reasonable to abandon one's hungry, emaciated son for a pot of milk, especially when we are surrounded with Raja's milk-soaked pastures?" A sarcastic wagtail added, "And is it reasonable that such an act be perpetrated by one who is known as the presiding deity of affectionate mothers?" But a group of experienced female birds answered, "Please consider for the least of Brajavasis, what to speak of Nanda and Yashoda, their homes, bodies, relatives and lives are fully dedicated to Krishna. They consider everything to be his. Similarly for Yashoda Devi, the milk is meant for Krishna and therefore she considers it even more important than him." The male birds protested in unison. "How can that be? Impossible. A pail of milk is more important than Krishna." But the females calmly continued, "Therefore Yashoda attends to her household duties even at the cost of Krishna's distress." The male birds huddled together to consult. Good-natured Shari added, "Our queen thinks my boy knows nothing but his body and his home. Therefore I must do my household duties with the same care as I do feeding him." The other females continued, "Do we not sometimes scold our own offspring out of love? Of course we do. Why, it is in their best interest." Similarly, Mother Yashoda has decided that Krishna's interest will be best served by saving the milk and even at the cost of his being hungry. A female dove swaggered towards the other birds, saying, "In that way, Yashoda Devi's conduct is consistent with her irreproachable love for Krishna." Her mate agreed, "She is faultless. Indeed, her conduct is a virtue. How could it be otherwise?" Shari added, "It is said that the mysteries of love are such that when ladies prepare food, they are sometimes more concerned about their preparation than about the persons who will eat." Concluding on what was being discussed, a wise horned owl spoke from a nearby branch. In other words, sometimes when confronted with two equally important things, one must attend to one at the cost of the other. For a great devotee like Queen Yashoda, the proper intuition on how to make such decisions is given to her by the Lord in the heart. How then can she be at fault, however extraordinary her actions may appear to us? Hearing this summary, all the birds concurred on the wise owl's wisdom, and calming their voices and smoothing their feathers, they turned their attention to baby Krishna as a little songbird chirped. My suspicion is that this is not the only extraordinary conduct of Yashoda Devi will display today. What do you mean? Asked the others. Call it a feeling that I have, maybe something I read in the stars before dawn. So this is the conclusion of chapter 2. And there are some absolutely brilliant notes after the chapter 2. Now we will commence from chapter 3. Krishna breaks the churning pot. Sanjata kopahas furita tarunadharam Sandashya dadabhir dadhimantha bhajanam bhitva mrisha sharur drishad ashmana raho jaghasa hayangavam antaram gatah. Being very angry and biting his reddish lips with teeth, Krishna, with false tears in his eyes, broke the container of yogurt with a piece of stone. Then he entered the room and began to eat the freshly churned butter in a solitary place. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 9, verse 6. In the way that a child's appetite for sweets increases with every bite, and in the way that a drunkard desires more wine with every sip, so Krishna's absorption in this pastime intensified with each unfolding scene. For a moment, Krishna's aggrieved reaction to being denied his mother's breast milk was subdued by wonder at her service attitude. He watched transfixed as Yashoda Devi ran into the kitchen and revealed the ultimate picture of maternal love. It was an image that Krishna secreted in the core of his heart, and one that disclosed a truth known to exceptionally qualified devotees to serve Krishna. Devotees would agree to be separated from him. Only because it pleased him would Mother Yashoda let Krishna herd cows in the forests. Only because he wanted to deliver Vasudeva and Devaki would the Vrajavasis allow him to go to Mathura. Only because they thought he wanted aristocratic girls would the gopis forgive his infidelity. While separation between lovers is generally painful, it was different with Krishna and the Vrajavasis. When Krishna was distant from them, the Vrajavasis externally behaved as if they had been poisoned. However, the internal reality, what the Vrajavasis felt, was entirely different. While separation appeared devastating, it actually caused feelings of unprecedented bliss. And so it was for Krishna when he was in the forest. Krishna's heart yearned for his mother's touch. When he was in Mathura, Krishna would cry after the Vrajavasis. And when he was sleeping beside Rukmani, he would call out Radha's name. At those times, Krishna's suffering was so extreme that it frightened his associates, yet at the same time within himself Krishna felt unprecedented bliss. Overpowering heartache, intense longing, and unrelenting hope were catalysts that transformed his suffering into ecstasy, and the ecstasy was so unique that Krishna wondered, what is this mysterious poison that transforms into the sweetest bliss? It had been like that just now. After he had snuggled into Yashoda's embrace, Krishna had become both the victim of neglect and the beneficiary of bliss. It was an extraordinary experience, one that he continued to enjoy until his rebellious mind thought, "She has left me for some milk." Following the experience of separation, some thoughts of being neglected, and from those thoughts emerged corresponding feelings that stoked the anger of love. Burned thus by the fire of indignation, Krishna boiled like a baby volcano. Mother Yashoda was also a beneficiary of a similar but even more intense sweetness. Upon feeding Krishna, she had tasted the heavenly nectar of his touch, and when she put him down, she drank the abysmal poison of his absence. But as she rushed to save the boiling milk, her ecstasy amazingly increased step by step. Like Krishna, she too was intoxicated by the love of separation, however, because he was the object of love and she the subject, because he was unlimited and she limited, her pleasures, both nectarian and poisonous, were 100 times greater than his. So when divine love forced Yashoda to rush to the stove, she was so disoriented that in an invisible way Yogamaya had to guide her. Knowing that his mother's bliss exceeded his own, Krishna felt further deprived. Another injustice, pierced thus from multiple directions, his mounting anger finally erupted. Although a little boy of 3, Krishna was the origin of anger, material and spiritual. The forms of Veerbhadra and Nrsimha may have appeared ferocious by comparison to baby Krishna, but the fierceness of the anger that he felt was no less than theirs. In this way, frustration at being neglected, jealousy of the boiling milk, and the injustice of being spiritually shortchanged caused a host of bodily symptoms. His hands clenched and unclenched, his little chest heaved with rapid breathing, and his black complexion became tinged with red, eyes reddish, eyebrows flitting, and lips trembling. Krishna glared in the direction of the kitchen, bit his lower lip and vowed, "I will get revenge." Feeling the heat of Krishna's wrath, the 2 parrots left their nearby perch for the security of the balcony and the company of the other birds. Too alarmed to speak, the birds could only wonder at the cause of Krishna's sudden fury. One bird thought, "He must be upset at being deprived of his mother's milk." Another thought, "More upsetting than that must be his feelings of abandonment." And yet another, "For such a young child, the pangs of unsatiated hunger are most upsetting." Finally, one bird tweeted softly, "His anger is most natural for a young child, and it arises spontaneously and without a cause." Although they could not agree that Krishna's anger was even real, the birds huddled together lest it were, and more so lest it be directed at them. But when a shower of hot, angry tears issued from Krishna's lotus eyes, most birds became convinced that Krishna's anger was heartfelt, although a few remained convinced that it was a show. Among each other in hushed tones that only they could hear. The way of birds is to bicker. At odds as to the cause of Krishna's anger and tears, they now argued in undertones. Were his tears real or false? Did they represent true emotions or a subterfuge? In regards to knowledge of Krishna's pastimes, the parrots and the owl were most learned, and therefore birds like the wagtail were inclined to share their conclusions. Shuka said, "Child Krishna's show of anger and tears are certainly deceitful, for in the shelter of a mother like Yashoda, he has no reason to exhibit them." The owl concurred, "Indeed, his tears are simply meant to deceive his mother and to garner sympathy." But Shari, who had the heart of a mother, saw things differently. From her adult point of view, Krishna's tears may indeed appear false, but from his childish perspective, they are not. For him, they are real. The 2 senior males exchanged glances, continued Shari. As mentioned earlier, under these circumstances, tears are natural for a child. The wagtail added, "There is no doubt that sometimes in order to get his way, Krishna cries false tears, but this time he is crying because he remains hungry. Who can blame a child for that?" Shari continued her defense. "Whatever we may think, Krishna's anger arises from his innermost mind, and the subsequent tears are as factual as the truths of the Puranas. Why would he have cause for false tears when there is no one here to see them?" To check that no one was present, the birds looked this way, and that it was true. There was no one other than Krishna and his rising anger. Indeed, the atmosphere seemed to crackle with tension in the way that air sparks during the thunderstorm. Shuka nodded in agreement. There is no public here to impress, and that lends weight to the logic that Krishna's tears are factual. Shari elaborated, "It is natural that someone exaggerates their condition. For example, when a lady is tired, she may make excessive facial and bodily gestures to accentuate fatigue. Although those gestures are exaggerations, the underlying cause is real. Similarly, Krishna's tears may be may dramatize his condition, but that does not make them false. His anger and sorrow are real. So we will continue our reading from here onwards next time. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.